Hello and welcome to Outdoorsy. I'm your host, Madeline. This is the podcast where we are redefining the word outdoorsy itself and reclaiming it for everyone. A little bit of housekeeping before I get into introducing my next guest. Be sure to subscribe to this wherever you are listening, whether that's YouTube or whatever your podcast platform you're listening on, and to rate it 5 stars if you have enjoyed listening so far. And join us on the Patreon, sharing bonus content on there, and you get to join the Discord community. So that is patreon.com/outdoorsy. But enough with the housekeeping and stuff. I want to get into the main content of this episode and introduce my next guest. I am so excited to introduce someone that I've been following on social media for a long time, and I think brings a very refreshing and real perspective to the outdoorsy world. Diyor. So, as an outdoorsy content creator, she shares her experience navigating the outdoors as a woman, as a person of color, and someone who is in a plus size body. 3 things often not represented in the outdoorsy world and the industry as a whole. Her journey, especially as someone who classifies themselves as a beginner, has really resonated with her online audience and people who don't always really see themselves represented in the outdoor industry. What I love most about her content is how authentic and relatable she is. I have cracked up watching some of her content, whether she's like just goofing around at a campground or trying a new activity for the first time. It just kind of feels like you're watching your outdoorsy bestie live her best life. I just love how Diyor's content encourages others to get out there, to explore, embrace the outdoors, no matter where they are at in their journey. So I can't wait to dive into her story, her content, and how she's making outdoors more approachable for everyone. So Diyor, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So happy that you're here. Thank you. Thank you. So let's just start off with the first question, which is how do you define outdoorsy?
So for me, I define outdoorsy as anyone who loves the outdoors. If you go outside and you enjoy nature, you protect it, take care of it, then you're outdoorsy.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's been a really similar thing across most of these interviews is like,
Mhm.
it's actually pretty simple. It's a pretty
Yeah,
simple definition.
exactly. You don't have to have fancy gear to start off with. Just go outside as you are and you're outdoorsy.
I love it. So did you grow up loving the outdoors or like was this something you learned later in life? I know you've talked about being kind of a beginner in a lot of your content. So tell me about how you got to today.
Well, I don't know if every state has this, but in Maryland, the fifth graders, they take a field trip and it's like a camping trip. We do campfires, zip line, fishing, all that type of thing. So I feel like ever since then, I've loved the outdoors. But, I didn't really see any of my friends or family or anyone who were interested in that type of thing. And also, I grew up in the Tumblr era, and I don't know, do you know anything about Tumblr?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
So, yeah, you only saw like one type of person. Like they were all like, these girls who are super aesthetic. And I was like, oh, I don't look like that. So I don't know if, the outdoors were for me. And then as I grew up, I'm like, okay, well, that doesn't really make sense. This is nature. It's for everyone. And I just started hiking and the rest is history.
Tell me about your journey into learning about hiking and starting off just from kind of zero to where you're at now.
I mean, I literally just found a local trail and I just started walking. We got a family dog around the time I was around, I would say 17. So I would take him for local walks and I was like, oh, this is really nice. Then I started exploring other trails like in Shenandoah, in West Virginia, and I've just loved it ever since.
That's so awesome. I really, it makes me happy when I hear people talking about like, well, I just found a trail and I just walked. It doesn't have
Yeah.
to be, it doesn't have to be like, oh yeah, I decided I was gonna hike the PCT. It's like, no, I just went for a little walk and the rest is history, like you said. I love that.
Yeah,
And it's so nice. Pets are such a good excuse for us to get outdoors too. So I love that as
exactly.
well. Yeah, yeah. So tell me about some of the outdoorsy activities and things that you do now, hiking and then you do camping. I've seen you also do like kayaking and things like that. Like what are some of your go-to activities outdoors?
So I've been dabbling in a lot of things. I've loved camping so far. Also, kayaking, I think that's my new favorite activity. So I'm actually looking for places near me that I can rent a kayak because I don't have my own. And I can go kayaking soon. And what else? I tried rock climbing. I don't know if that's for me,
Fair.
but it was fun to try. And there's a lot of stuff. Like, I always see people on my For You page trying these different activities, and I just want to try everything, even if I'm not good at it. They all look so fun.
Yeah, well, that's the thing that I think we forget sometimes is like we can try a new thing, a new hobby or a new activity, and we don't have to master it. We can just
Hmm.
enjoy doing it. Like for me, running, I'm very slow. I'm not trying to run a marathon anytime soon, but I just
Hmm.
like running and I'm not like trying to be the best. And I think that as long as you go into like trying new outdoorsy activities with that same mindset of like, well, I'm just
Hmm.
gonna try it, and if it's not for me, it's not for me, or if I'm
Exactly.
bad at it, that's okay too. Did I have fun? Cool.
Right. And I feel like it's always fun to try, even if you're not good at it.
Yes,
It's still an
yes, exactly.
experience.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's always a good story. You do it for the plot.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So, let's talk about your outdoorsy content creation too, because obviously
And
it's one thing to be enjoying the outdoors and trying new activities and things like that, but it's a whole nother thing to be sharing it online with a
mhm.
large following. So, how did you get into outdoorsy content creation?
Well, so actually, I've always posted on TikTok. I would post my hikes, but they didn't go viral
Yeah.
or get any views. And then one day I just had this video that blew up. And so ever since then, I've been posting like the outdoor content. And I love it. I'm happy that this is my niche because I feel like it's so fun. Like, I love hiking and experiencing all these new places. So I think it's great.
Yeah, it's fun. I love your content too. What was the video that blew up?
It was the one of me in Colorado talking about I'm going to be the representation.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what I thought because I think that's how I found you too, was through that video.
Mhm.
So I want to talk about the themes obviously from that video and kind of dive into this next part of the podcast, which is talking about like inclusivity and representation. And maybe you can talk about that video for anybody who hasn't seen it yet and is listening to this podcast, like kind of what that was about and then how that has tied into the rest of your content creation.
I've learned now that there are a lot of people of color who are interested in hiking and outdoors, but we often aren't represented. So I made that video thinking that there weren't a lot of us, and now I've come to terms like, okay, there are. And so I just ever since then I'm like, okay, well, I want us to be represented, so I'm going to keep pushing out videos and hopefully brands will see me and, they'll want to work with me.
Yeah, it's amazing. I've talked to a couple of other creators, and they've had the same similar experience where they're like, it's
Mhm.
not that these marginalized groups don't exist in the outdoors. They do. They just haven't
Right.
been given the visibility that other people have. And why is that? Like, we should be changing that. So I think it's amazing that you're able to recognize that and then also take the next step and be like, I'm going to be the representation. I'm going to do that. Because that takes a lot of guts. I mean, it takes a lot of guts and a lot of time and effort too into creating the videos and the content that you do. So it's amazing.
Thank you.
So tell me, let's just dive into this a little bit more. And I'd
Mhm.
love to hear from you about kind of how you've struggled to fit in to the outdoorsy community. So I want to dive into that a little bit more because I think one of the biggest barriers for people getting into the outdoors is that they don't see themselves represented. So when you first started putting yourself out there or you started first kind of like diving into this community more, like how have you navigated that with such limited representation and inclusion in today's day and age?
Well, I guess I just went into it knowing that there wasn't a lot of representation, so I figured that I would just be the one to start, a movement. And I've noticed, like, ever since I've been posting videos, a lot of people will message me, like, oh, you've encouraged me to start hiking, or you've encouraged me to start posting outdoor content. So I've been loving seeing that.
So what like if there was someone that was listening to this right now and they're feeling like, great, I'm finally seeing your content, awesome, but I still don't feel included, or maybe I still don't feel like I fit in
Mhm.
yet with this outdoorsy community. Like, what advice would you have for those people? Because you've been able to just kind of jump in with a lot of confidence. And I think a lot of people are like not quite there yet in their
Mhm.
journey, of feeling like they're included. So, what advice would you give them?
Some advice would be to definitely find some creators that relate to you, whether if that's like your plus size or you're a person of color. Find more creators like that and follow them, because seeing those people help you feel like, okay, I belong here too in this space. So I would recommend that. And honestly, I know it sounds, so easy, but I would just say, just do it. You belong here too. Just go out and hike. Even if you don't feel represented, it's okay. Like, you still belong here, no matter what.
I love that. I think diversifying your feed is such a huge benefit
Mhm.
for anybody. Like, I remember when I first started engaging with more outdoorsy related content on social media, I was being fed a lot of content from hetero presenting
Right.
cisgendered white people in like thin bodies. And I
Exactly.
was like, well, I don't quite fit all those boxes, but like close enough. um, and then I was like, well, what about people who aren't trying to, you know, I don't know, hike the PCT? What about people who aren't trying to be outdoorsy because they're trying to like lose weight? What if they just want to enjoy the outdoors? What about people with disabilities like myself? What about people who are in slightly larger bodies like myself? What about people who are queer? Like I just was like, I don't understand like where everybody is. Like I want to see
Exactly.
that. And so I started following more people that like either looked different from me or were in some of these smaller communities that I was part of. And I was like, oh, there's a lot out here actually. And it helped build my confidence a ton when I started seeing different types of people, but then also seeing people with some of these more niche, smaller identities that resonated with me. So I think that's a really good piece of advice to just diversify your feed if you can.
Yes, that's so important.
Any other advice for people who maybe are struggling to feel like they don't fit in with the outdoorsy community?
Not really. Just say go for it with open arms.
Yeah, I think just like you were saying too, just getting out there and
Mhm.
trying stuff, doing the things.
Exactly.
How have you gone into trying new things for the first time? Like and in some of my other interviews, people have talked about like communities that they've gotten plugged into, whether that's like a hiking group or they found a friend online that they just made through like a Facebook group or something like that, and they just kind of went out that way. How have you found like community in the outdoorsy world?
Groups is definitely number one. I follow a lot of different groups. Some here in Maryland, a lot are in Georgia. I met some really amazing people there. But yeah, I say different groups. There's camping groups, hiking groups, outdoor groups in general. There's one group here in Maryland. I haven't hiked with them yet, but I did do yoga with them, and that was a really nice experience.
Oh, that's awesome. So, how did you find these groups?
Mostly all through Instagram.
Okay. And I think that anybody listening should definitely feel encouraged to try out those groups too,
Hmm.
because it does help. I think that a lot of the times when you're facing some level of insecurity or some level of like, I don't know, feeling othered or not included, what for whatever reason, sometimes it's easy to like isolate. Like that's the
Hmm.
reason why I started solo hiking was because I was like, everybody else here seems on a different level than me. And
Right.
I cannot keep up, and I also don't want to keep up. I want to go slow. So I just started going by myself. But like the more that I've talked to people and the more I've like gotten to know that like the majority of the outdoorsy community is actually very welcoming and inclusive. It just
Yes.
isn't portrayed that way sometimes. Um, the more I've been like craving that community. So hopefully
Hmm.
people can hear your story too and feel encouraged to branch out into some of these groups and stuff.
Yes, and there's literally a group for everything. Like, I've been loving Slow Girls Hike or like Unlikely Hikers. It just showcased different people in different bodies or, different sexualities or whatever who like to hike, you
Yeah,
know?
those are great groups. Yes, yes,
Hmm.
yes. I'll add links to those groups too in the show notes too for anybody who wants to get connected with those specific groups. In those groups that you've experienced, like what are some of the things that they do to help you feel more welcome and like more connected and included?
Say just by the people they feature on their page, like seeing people with disabilities get outside, seeing people, like queer people get outside and people of color, also seeing plus size people outside. It's helped me feel like, okay, there's a large variety of people who like the outdoors and I'm not alone in this space. There's people out there
Yeah.
like me.
Yeah, that level of visibility is so important. That's why I get really frustrated with like outdoorsy brands when they
Mhm.
have they share stuff on their social media or even in their um like on their models and stuff like that online, it's just like all people who look like one type of person. Or maybe they've got like a wide range of different like genders and races represented, but then they
Hmm.
don't have anybody who is in a larger body. They don't have anybody with disabilities. They don't have anybody who's like non-binary or not presenting along the binary, like they don't they're like, "Oh, yes, we checked the box of diversity," but it's like such a narrow thing. It's like, okay, there's more than just that.
Right. It's very
Yeah.
diverse.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things that you
Hmm.
can be diverse about. So yeah, I have like a big spreadsheet of like all these brands that I like, that I
Okay.
have them like ranked on how like ethical and inclusive I find them, and one of those factors that I've like ranked them on is diversity in their marketing, and I'm like beyond just having men and women represented.
Right. I'll definitely check
Yeah.
that out after this.
Yeah. I'll share the link with you. But yeah, and I know that you've gotten to work with some brands, which is so exciting and amazing and well deserved. What are some of those collaborations that you've been working on? I loved your
Um,
PR box from Eddie Bauer. That was great.
oh yeah, that was really nice. I really love the sweatshirt they sent me.
Yeah.
I've also worked with REI, Alder Apparel, Wandery Outdoors. What else? It's been a lot. Like sometimes I can't even
Yeah.
keep up because it's really been a lot. But those are the main ones, like the bigger names.
Yes. Alder Apparel is one of my favorites. They're like at the tippity top of my spreadsheet. Same with Wondery. I haven't had a chance to try Wondery yet. How have you found their products?
Definitely true to size. I have a bunch of their
Yeah.
Isabel pants and I love them. I have them in a few different colors. And they're true to size, true to length, whatever. And I honestly I wear them to work too because I'm a rural carrier, so we don't have uniforms. So I'll wear them to work too.
Well, that's awesome. Okay, yeah, I definitely am currently like in this moment being influenced to get a pair of their pants. No, I love also like I was mentioning Alder Apparel, their stuff fits so nicely. I find
Mhm.
it like I've tried a lot of different hiking pants and they're always so rigid. And then I had
Right.
Alder pants and I was like, "Oh my God, these are so comfortable. I actually feel like I can
Yeah.
move in these."
Yeah, they're so extremely lightweight. Like they're the most lightweight hiking pants I've ever tried.
Yeah, but not like flimsy, lightweight, and
Right.
also yeah.
But durable.
Um, yeah. Are there any other brands that you really like that have, been great for you and your body? That maybe if anybody's like struggling to find stuff like that fits them or works for them, any other brands you'd recommend for people?
The ones I mentioned, I have to look. I'd have to do more
Yeah.
research, but I know definitely REI has a great selection for plus size and Alder Apparel. Those are my two favorite.
So what are some other things like besides, brands obviously like we were talking about diversifying their marketing, diversifying their size inclusion and their product offerings. What other things do you hope to see with either brands or just like the outdoorsy community in general to like continue making this outdoorsy community more inclusive and welcoming to people?
Yeah, I would just say them showcasing more than one type of person. Definitely keep doing that because it really helps. Like, there's people who feel like they don't belong in this space. So, seeing, a person who maybe looks like them or is the same sexuality as them, it really helps them feel comfortable and makes them feel like, okay, they can get outdoors too. So, I say just focus on representation.
One of the common threads that I have had with these podcast interviews is with people who are in any kind of marginalized body, whether that's their plus size, they're a person of color, they're queer, whatever it might be, and they're an outdoorsy content creator. A lot of the time they'll get like hate comments or stupid people in their comments, whether it's people trying to make them feel inferior or trying to gatekeep or just being nasty in general. I'm sure you have encountered your fair share of atrocious commentary online. How have you navigated that?
So, for me personally, I just try not to read them at all. Like, comments usually start off good and then they'll get nasty a little bit later, like once the videos start getting more traction. So for me, I just stop reading them because I know that I'm sensitive. So yeah, I just don't read them altogether.
Yeah, one of the things that I've done is I'll just turn the comments off or I'll just
Mhm.
delete because I'm like, this is my page. There's
Yeah.
no, you know, I have control here, not
Yeah, typically I just delete them too.
yeah. But one of the things that I've talked about with some of the other podcast guests is that I think sometimes people get a little bit discouraged and a little bit scared when they see nasty comment sections on outdoorsy creators who are in marginalized bodies. Um, they think that that's reflective of the real world. They'll see, a nasty comment from someone and be like, oh my God, I'm going to pass that person on the trail or something like that. And the reality is like, no. The
Not at
reality
all.
is that like the people who are making nasty comments online usually aren't actually even going out into the outdoors.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're just
So,
trolls.
yeah, have you found that to be the case in your, adventures outdoors? How have you found like the random people that you've interacted with in general?
I feel like the people on the trail are always the nicest people ever. I swear, like every time I pass someone on the trail, they always smile or say good morning or, make casual small talk. But I've never ever encountered someone who was rude on the trail.
That was going to be my next question was have you had any negative experiences with people in the real world?
Never. Actually, that's one of the reasons why I love hiking, just interacting with the people. They're always so nice.
That's amazing. It makes me so happy to hear that because I think it's so true. Like it's
Mhm.
definitely really rare to actually come across people who are being terrible. Usually it's nice and welcoming.
Yeah, and that's like the case for all states I've been to. Like I've been hiking in Georgia recently, West Virginia, Colorado. Like all the people were all nice in all those states.
That's so refreshing to hear. Seriously. Where's your favorite place that you've been hiking?
I think for me it's Shenandoah. Like that will always be my answer. I don't know what it is about Shenandoah, but I just love it so much. Every time I go there, I just feel so relaxed and at peace, and it just helps me clear my mind when I'm there.
Oh, I love that. I haven't explored that part of the country at all. So I definitely need to take a page out of your book and start exploring out there because it sounds lovely.
It is. It's so beautiful.
I want to maybe dive into that piece too, which is like I feel like sometimes people think of outdoorsy things like hiking or that kind of thing as a means to an end, either for like fitness or for like training for something, or kind of more like it's a competitive sport or something. But what you just mentioned of like, oh, I feel so at peace and it makes me feel so good. Like, talk to me a little bit about that and like your relationship to outdoorsy activities and kind of like how you feel about them.
Yeah, for me, like with hiking specifically, it's not like a competition for me. I always go at my own pace. I'm sure people consider me a slow hiker, which is fine, because I'm not really there for a sport. I'm just there to clear my mind and relax.
I think that's something that a lot of people can relate to, but
Mhm.
maybe don't know is like allowed. And I'm using
Right.
quotes if air quotes if you're listening to the audio podcast, but um because there's no rules for hiking. Except for leave no trace and like being respectful.
Mhm.
But there's no rule for like you must go at this pace or you must I don't know, anything like no one's going to come out and be like, you have too much stuff in your backpack or you took too many rest breaks. Like it's just not going to happen. And enjoying the outdoors for something other than like conquering something or necessarily like accomplishing a specific goal is such a refreshing mindset to shift into, but
Mhm.
it's hard if you don't know. And if you only see online or in media or whatever a certain depiction of hikers and that kind of thing, you don't realize that you can just go out and enjoy.
And that's why I try to be transparent because I feel like some people may like stray away from hiking because they're like, oh, well, I'm not super competitive, or oh, I can't hike 10 miles, so maybe I shouldn't do it at all. But that's not the case. Like, even if you're hiking 1 mile, you're still a hiker.
I cannot agree more. And also, if you're hiking 1 mile and it takes you an hour instead
Mhm.
of, 30 minutes, you're still a hiker. Like, pace does not have any reflection of how worthy or how valid your activity is. It is, even if you don't even complete a hike, if you just go out and walk for a little bit, you know?
Yeah, because I still do that too. Sometimes I'll turn around and come back to my car midway, and it's okay.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. Any other advice for people who are like struggling to feel welcomed or included in the outdoorsy community?
I would say maybe document your journey. I feel like that's been helping me as well. Like sometimes I'll post my hikes and maybe I'll show me taking a break and having people say like, "Oh, that's okay," and having people like validate that. It makes me feel like, okay, maybe I do belong here, or maybe I am a real hiker, stuff like that.
Yeah, I love that. And you two, like at the very beginning of this episode, you mentioned like you don't need to have a ton of gear or like the highest quality technical gear or anything to get started. Talk to me a little bit about that piece too, because I do think that that's sometimes both a mental and financial barrier for people as they think that they need to have like all of the things at once, but that's not necessarily always the case. So can you talk to me a little bit about that as well?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I would say the most important thing is a good shoe, but you can find that on Amazon for like around $40 to $50. But other than that, like the leggings that you usually wear, a t-shirt, like your old gym t-shirts, I feel like they're personally, I feel like they're fine. Like,
Yeah, I was so confused. I actually made a TikTok about this uh, a couple months ago, but I was really confused when I first started doing doing my hiking journey, like starting out and doing solo hiking as an adult, because as a teenager, we always just wore like the like Nike running shorts that everybody had.
yeah,
And I like held on to for like 20 years and like a baggy t-shirt, that I slept in and my sneakers. And then when I started seeing more people like posting online and stuff in these like matching sets or like super technical gear, I was like, wow, everybody looks like so professional and so
yeah,
put together. And I was like, do I need to do that? And then I gaslit myself into thinking that like I was doing it wrong because I didn't
mhm,
have the right outfit. That I was like, well, obviously there's some mystical reason why these people are wearing these things that I don't know. And I have to once I get the outfit, then I'll be a real hiker and I'll count or something. You just get in these
yeah,
headspaces, but it's like, no, the best gear that you can have is the gear that you already have,
yes,
or thrift it or borrow
hmm,
it or go to a gear locker. Like I just found out about this awesome gear locker in Tacoma, Washington that's run by
ooh,
this company that they do coffee. They're called Campfire Coffee and they have a gear locker. Like there's so many ways to get the stuff that you need when
right,
it is more technical. But otherwise, just like wear your sleep t-shirt
and
and
yeah,
those ratty shorts.
right. And when I go hiking on the trail, I don't really see anyone like decked out in high tech gear. Maybe it's just the
No,
area. I'm sure other places might be different, but I never see anyone like that.
no,
Everyone
I
just looks
know.
casual.
Yeah. Right? Everybody is just like, and also nobody really cares what you're
Yeah,
wearing in real life. Again, it's like one of those things about like, yes, it's great to be able to share what you're doing online, but also like in the real life on the trail, nobody is thinking about your outfit. No one's thinking about your pace. Like,
right.
and if they are, hopefully they're just like, yeah, good for them. Or like, they look cute. Like, no one's being like, oh, look at that terrible outfit.
Not
It's
at
not
all.
happening.
No.
Yeah, yeah, or like judging your gear or anything like that. It's just not happening. Any advice for people who are also feeling like um they want to get outside and be outdoorsy, but they also want to be like mindful of the impacts that they're making on our lands and our wildlife, because that can be sometimes a really delicate balance. So like how do we encourage more people to feel welcome and feel included in the outdoors while also striking that balance between protecting our lands and our wildlife?
Honestly, I would use your content for example. Like you always post informative information and you teach me a lot, honestly. So I feel like creators who are more experienced and who are more knowledgeable, I feel like them posting um yeah, just posting the information It really helps a lot, like posting about leave no trace principles and stuff like that. It helps people who are like me, who are beginners, who are just getting into this, to learn how to protect these lands.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you. That's first of all very sweet of you to say. I'm glad that my content has been helpful and useful. I think the other thing I would say too for anybody listening is that like you're gonna make mistakes. I
Hmm.
think that there's a lot of like I mean I've done it where I've taken someone's video of them like clearly violating leave no trace and like talked about why it's bad and what we can do better and that kind of thing. But like ultimately, there's probably going to be stuff that you do when you first are starting out in your journey and you are a big beginner that, like, looking back after you've had some more experience, you're like, ooh, maybe I shouldn't have done that or something. I have stories of that myself. I tell the story of my first time sleeping in my Subaru. I was parked at a trailhead in a national park and slept overnight, which is so not allowed. And I
Wow.
just didn't know. I just didn't know. And I look back and I cringe and I'm like, oh no. But you're going to make mistakes. And yes, some mistakes are worse than others, right? Or more damaging or harmful. But as long as you're like trying your best and trying to be educated and like trying to continue to learn and do better every time that you do make a mistake, like that's what's important.
Hmm. I
Yeah.
agree with you.
Yeah. I think sometimes it can be hard because people like compare themselves to people who have like years and years of experience and knowledge.
Mhm.
It's like, no, a lot of this just comes from going out there and making mistakes and learning and doing better next time.
Exactly.
Have there been any things that you did when you were first starting out your journey that you're like looking back now, oh my God, I shouldn't have done, or like funny stories or anything from when you first were kind of beginning your outdoorsy? It doesn't have to be related to Leave No Trace at all, but
Mhm.
just any like silly mistakes or goof ups that you made to help people kind of feel a little bit better if they do make mistakes or things like that.
I think for me would be like veering off path. Like sometimes I would like to just go and walk through the grass thinking I would take a shortcut or just thinking like it's more scenic a different way. But now I've learned, that's not okay, especially if they're like are wildflowers or whatever, and that it's important to stay on the trail. And that's like the biggest thing that I've learned.
Yeah, it's also like good for safety too, because especially if you're a beginner and you don't know how to navigate and stuff without, it's like, oh God, once you go off trail, good luck.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
is true.
Yeah. You're just like, oh, that's pretty over there. And then next thing you know, you're lost. So yeah, I know. Leave no trace aside. It's like, oh gosh. Um, cool. Well, I think that probably wrap up here. But is there anything else you want to say on the note of kind of inclusivity and representation in the outdoorsy world?
I would say so if you're someone who doesn't feel represented, I would say just continue to go out there and still, if for example, if it's hiking, I say keep hiking, keep showing up. It's okay if you don't see yourself. Um, you never know what can happen. Like I didn't see people that look like me, and now I'm like the face of certain brands. So I say just keep showing up.
That's such good advice. Well, I hope people listening feel encouraged and excited to go out and try new things, even if they don't
Mhm.
see themselves represented, and feel inspired to like be that change like you were, if they feel so inclined. But yeah, I hope people listening just remember that they are welcome out there, and there are more people like them out there in real life. Sometimes we just don't see it represented online.
Yeah.
So that's the goal. That's the goal is to get more representation. So you're doing an amazing job, Dior. I just think that what you post is so great, and your positivity and just like fun approach to your content too really shines through and helps people feel like they're really connected and that you're not just like a I don't know, a phony influencer or anything. You're like, no, I'm a real person and this is like what it's like. And there are people like me out there and I love it. I just really, really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Is there anything that is coming up for you that you want to plug? Let's start with where can the people find you online?
Okay, so you can find me at Planet Dior on Instagram and TikTok, YouTube too. I haven't been good with posting on YouTube, but eventually I will be consistent on there. But Instagram and TikTok are my main platforms.
Perfect. And I'll make sure those links are in the show notes as well so people can just click through and follow you. And then, yeah, do you have any like upcoming projects or things that are coming up for you that you're excited about? This could be like an upcoming trip you're hosting, or an upcoming brand deal, or just maybe a upcoming kayaking trip that you're going on, or anything like that. Like, what's next for you? What's coming up that you're excited about?
Well, it is a maybe, but one girl reached out to me to go hiking with her, and it's a 10-mile hike. I've never hiked that
Ooh.
long, so I've been trying to train for it. Like I've been trying to hike more, starting off with shorter hikes and trying to work my way up. So that's what I've been doing lately. As for brands, it's just been like a lot of local stuff. Like I live in Maryland, so this brand in DC, it's called the Anacostia River. Like they reached out to me, so I'm gonna be making a video for them this week. But other than that, nothing major.
Well, I will make sure that everybody can follow along in case you do go on this hike, and they can
Mhm.
click through your links and follow along. But yeah, I hope everybody at home listening resonated with your story and is able to feel just a little bit more courageous by hearing the story of another lovely content creator getting out there and being the representation. So yeah, thank you, Dior. Thank you so much. Any last thoughts before we wrap up here?
No, I think we're all good.
Okay, cool. Well, that concludes this episode of Outdoorsy. Again, Dior, thank you so much for joining us. All of her links will be in the show notes, as well as the link to the Patreon if you would like to subscribe to that to gain access to bonus episodes, and our Discord community. Dior will be given access to the Discord community as well, so you might be able to connect with her there too. And yeah, I hope that this was helpful and encouraging for everybody listening. Please be sure to, subscribe and rate the podcast. And just remember that, however you decide you want to show up outdoors is enough and is valid, and that you belong out there. All right, until next time. Bye bye.